Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate very much that you held this hearing, and I appreciate very much the ongoing conversations that we have to try to get to a real bipartisan postal bill that actually does reform. I want to say, Mr. DeJoy, you said earlier your only requests are those included in the draft bill, but requests aren't the same as needs. And while our side has sought to clarify you have support of the board and that Democrats' charges against you are baseless, it's clear, as Mr. Conley said, that they want you gone. So your plan when it comes out might be fantastic, but however long you do end up staying, it's not going to be forever. So we need policies that are going to address the aspects of the Postal Service's problems over and above those dealing with retiree benefits. And when I asked you what happened the last time you tried to make those operational changes, it wasn't to have you detail how those changes impacted service. It was to highlight how entrenched interest fought you tooth and nail at every turn. And the likelihood is that's what's going to happen in the future. But I felt it was essential for us to discuss the obstacles facing the Postal Service and hear about some difficult decisions that we'll have to make in Congress. With this information, we have a real opportunity for the Postal Service to enact meaningful change. It's often a mantra that we should start with the easy pickings. The temptation to do so in the case of postal reform is strong because of how much we hear from our constituents and stakeholders nervous about any possible changes to how things have always been done. Fixing some accounting issues and doing things like switching the pot of money from which employee health care is funded will no doubt clean up the books and create some short-term relief for the Postal Service. But they are not nearly enough, and everyone knows that. They will not solve the problems confronting the Post Office, and the American people are not going to see them as an improvement on the services they rely on. As Mr. Bloom said in his written statement, quote, "If I've learned one thing, it is that the single largest impediment to achieving a successful outcome is that stakeholders will support the abstract need for change, but will seek to avoid changing anything that impacts their particular interest." So in other words, the Chairman of the Board of Governors is saying that stakeholders know something is wrong, they know something needs to change, so they all say the right things about it, but when push comes to shove, they refuse to consider any changes that will force them in turn to adapt or evolve in a way that ensures the Postal Service can survive and thrive. We here on this committee should not limit ourselves to the easy pickings and leave the more difficult decisions to some later date. If we do, it will be too simple to pat ourselves on the back for finally enacting some postal legislation and ignore the opportunity to create real lasting change that will allow the Postal Service to serve the American people better. A postal bailout alone without any structural changes is not a real reform bill. So, Mr. DeJoy, we look forward to your forthcoming plan. We appreciate the working relationship that you and Mr. Bloom and the entire board have, and we appreciate the fact that the board supports your forthcoming changes. So, Madam Chair, I look forward to working with you as we move forward to pass a real bipartisan postal bill that reforms the Post Office.